Are you ready?
I'm all set. Go ahead, do it.
Okay.
All right, it's an honor to talk with you. My question is, what advice would you have for a person interested in being a politician?
My advice would be very cautious. Don't be overly anxious to be a politician. Too many people set that as their goal, and the issues become less important. So I want people to concentrate on what they believe in, stand for something, and then find some vehicle to promote that cause. And sometimes it's political, sometimes it's in combination with that, or some type of an academic group. But if you do your job about learning the issues and knowing about it, and you still want to get involved, people can get involved by being candidates or helping a campaign. A lot of people get introduced that way, but I try to advise people away from making that your number one goal. That should be just sort of if it's available to you. But the most important thing is to understand the philosophy of liberty, and there will be some vehicle, and sometimes it'll be in the political sphere.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Kevin. I'm going to bring on Thad next.
Dr. Paul, you're an inspiration. Truly, you've done more than your fair share, and you continue to do so. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
My question, I guess, is given so much of the legislation coming out of Washington over the past 15 years, seems to conflict with the interest of the American people. Do you feel legislators in Washington are simply being led astray by way of maybe misguided beliefs? Or do you feel they are acting out of interests that are different from those of the American people that they are meant to represent? I guess in short, are legislators, in your opinion, acting maliciously in a sense or with good intent, in your opinion?
I think most of them are well-intended. They have good intentions. There are some who represent nothing but evil and special interests. They'd start a war to sell weapons or protect oil or something like that. But the majority, liberals and conservatives, are well-intentioned. But most of them are driven by philosophy, and the philosophy that they've been taught in our schools for the last 50, 60, 70 years has all been incorrect. They teach Keynesian economics, they teach Federal Reserve paper money standards, and they don't even really question that. So even those who join in, they never think they're going against the will of the people. If you say, well, you don't obey the Constitution, you took the oath of office to obey the Constitution, they would say, well, the Constitution can't be overly rigid, and that's what they've been taught. So it goes back to an educational system and an understanding. But unfortunately, although there's a small number up there that are motivated by bad intentions, too often they get in power, because the independent-minded person that's going to challenge the system, you don't get promoted up there. You take, for instance, I was there a long time, but I wasn't in a position of legislative power. So that was not my goal to do that. So philosophy is very important. Power struggles are very important, but you just can't say everybody that went to Washington is not motivated correctly. And it gives you one opening, since they're sort of followers. If we change the philosophy and the people want something, like if the people don't want war, like they didn't want Obama to bomb Syria, that is an influence, because they will, listen, because they're political people. So as bad as it may seem, it's not all that bad. That is, if the people wake up and send a strong message to Washington.
Fair enough. Thank you.
We're going to bring on Christopher.
Dr. Paul, thank you for everything you've done. I just wanted to say that you've inspired me, and I'm a veteran, and in 2012, I was paying close attention to everything that was going on, and I just want to say thank you for all you've done. My question is, well, I live in Massachusetts, and as you know, up here, there's a strong, liberal, modern-day liberal sense around the culture. And how do we talk to people about what the Constitution really means? How do we convince them to get away from the extreme leftist or extreme right-wing paradigm?
Well, it's gradual. It's through persuasion, talking to people. It's showing the failures of our system. The economic system, is failing. Keynesianism doesn't work. Deficit spending doesn't work, and printing money doesn't work. The foreign policy is a failure. But as bad as it may seem to you in Massachusetts, there were several members of the delegation there that I could talk to on some issues. When maybe the drug war, which is an important issue, and maybe on foreign policy and civil liberties. But the big problem is how do we convince them to be consistent that they ought to look at economic freedom as well? But the best you can do is try to influence the situation, try to get them to pay attention, but they're not going to respond to high pressure. If a lot of people send them a message, they would probably vote him out of office. And eventually, when the attitudes change, whether it's in Massachusetts or California or wherever government seems to be intrusive, then the politicians will change or they will be voted out of office. So it's a long-term struggle, but it really starts with people trying to understand why liberty is what we want to defend and not government authoritarianism.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It means a lot.
We're going to bring on our next participant, and that is Junior Robinson. We're going to try to bring him on.
All right. Well, my question is about your son, actually. Basically, I noticed that he's gotten a lot very much more popular than a lot of people have, in such a short amount of time. So I'm wondering basically if you think that he's probably our best choice at, best option at getting a voice for liberty out into the world, particularly the presidential realm, because we've seen people like Gary Johnson, who got about 7% of the electoral vote last election cycle, and you, but nothing that has really been so popular as he has. So I'm wondering if he, in your mind, is our best chance at getting somebody liberty-minded into the world of politics.
I think if you look at the polling, the national polling shows that he's, right up in front or very close to it, but it's still pretty early. There's a couple years to go yet. But I think it's a reflection not only that he's doing a good job and understands it and can deliver this message, and he's reaching a lot more people than I reached, but it's also a reflection that there is an awakening in this country. If he'd have given this message probably 30 years ago, or if I'd have done it 30 years ago, matter of fact, I was doing it 30 years ago when there was nobody listening. So the country is becoming more willing to accept the ideas of liberty because they're seeing the failures of too much government. So I think he's in the position to deliver that message. And right now, of the contenders they talk about, because nobody's announced, I would say he is and can deliver that message as well as any of the others, if not a lot better.
So this is a question from Judy, who I know was a delegate for you. She has a question here. It says, Dr. Paul, do you think what is happening in Gaza is genocide, funded by the U.S., and what can we do to put an end to the foreign aid of that horror? That's what she meant.
I think when you use the word genocide, all of a sudden it becomes a trick and it carries a whole lot of weight. Because, nobody talks about the Soviet genocide, but the Soviet system killed hundreds of millions of people. Pol Pot killed a significant number of people in his country. Hitler killed a lot of people. But when it becomes genocide, it connotes, well, we're only going to kill one certain people, and we'll call it genocide. So I think just all the killing has to be categorized in the same place. So when it comes to Gaza, a lot of people are dying in Gaza, and it's a real mess. And I believe the people in Gaza are living in prison conditions. They can't go about, and there are blockades there. They can't go anywhere. So it's a tragic situation. But to say that the killing that is going on is genocide, I think, is probably a little bit of a stretch. But the way that Palestinians are being treated, they're being mistreated because they're Palestinians, and that raises a lot of question. But, you know, a lot of times there's still the debate over whether Turkey was responsible for genocide against the Armenians, and that's 100 years ago. Well, I think historically that's very, very important, but everybody knows that the Armenians were killed by the old Turkish system, not the current Turkish government. So I would like to say, I'm not going to say yes, that is genocide, what's going on there, but there's too much killing, and I think the Palestinians been treated unfairly, and that something someday should be done about that.
This is a question from Sharon. Let's see how you'll respond to this one. If Rand is elected president in 2016, will you take a seat in his cabinet? And if so, what position? It's a very early question.
I don't think that would work out very well. So no, that wouldn't even be legal. I don't think you're allowed to take relatives into your cabinet anyway. You know, I think Kennedy was the last one that did that, and I think they have a rule against it. So that's not under consideration, and I'm sure it hasn't crossed his mind either.
Thanks again, Dr. Paul, for participating and answering these questions.
Okay, talk to you soon.